So like at health culture, the whole point here, right, is to create a sort of inviting, non-intimidating space for people who don't consider themselves gym guys, right?
Hmm.
Anyone who's like, it's a foregone conclusion. I got a knee replacement. I'm too old. I was in a car accident. I have widespread, whatever. Like, I'm not that guy. Fitness is for
Hmm.
somebody else. Well, those are the people I want here, right?
Hmm.
So
Exactly.
it's so funny because this is exactly what you're talking about, where you go out looking for one thing and you end up with a different culture. I joined
Hmm.
I went out and started joining like communities on Discord
Mm,
actually,
mm,
and I joined one that was run by I'm 38, another a girl who's in her 30s as well. She joins this thing, she creates this server. I join, and it's fun. I'm talking with some like-minded people about fitness for a while. It turns into a lot of like, I don't mean this in an insulting way, but kids.
mhm,
It turns into a lot of boys who've been working out for like 40 minutes, right? And they're like, West
mhm,
Side, Wentler
mhm,
531. My
mhm,
macro. Like, bro, you would, do you know how to do a bicep curl? Like, you're still learning. Don't you know? It's a lot of that. It's a
right.
lot of kids coming in and going, gym today. Oh.
Mhm,
And after a while, I leave the group because I'm like, this is not for me.
mhm.
The woman who started it reaches out. She's like, "Yo, my group's turning into little kids. Let's just
Yeah.
tell me a friend. Like, let's stay in touch because I think I'm gonna try to, but it's like this slow acquisition of the people I want because there's nothing wrong with young boys who are excited about fitness, but
Mhm,
I did not open health culture to get your kid jacked. That's just I'm
right.
not good at that. It's not what I'm passionate about, you know.
Mhm,
But eventually, from that, I kind of found a person who has what I needs what I have, and slowly eking that community together. But I really do think you have to wade a little bit through like
mhm.
everybody
Yeah.
and then start weaning out. All right, I can't help any of you. Somebody can, it's not me. You over there in the corner, you I can help.
Mhm. One thing I found, I think it's a similar thing, but with a different bias is, and I don't know how useful it still is, like because things have really changed over the last 5 years and then some. But I doing the online forum work with other professionals, but professionals that might not be near you, like from a geographical standpoint, and like and paying maybe for like a Mike Boyle forum discussion because you could really have some good conversations if you're willing to take the time to go back and forth. Like there's really some good conversations with people that are already decently successful. And then you can kind of see where your mindset is compared to them. And then you realize like, okay, it's like people that are successful, at least in our industry, are again not generally really successful in the grand scheme of success, right? But just like people in our industry know them, and you get a sense of like, all right, what's their mentality? Like, are they like magical in their thinking? And usually no, right? Like usually like you can have an absolute like professional conversation and they don't know much more than you. And especially if you have a background where have a medical side of your background, you might know quite a bit more when you're talking to people that are just in the strength and conditioning set. But this is also where you get a sense of like, okay, I've never worked with like professional athletes, and you can talk to some people that have, and you realize like how different that conversation is, and how off your initial line of thinking might have been for what you thought that was, right? I think those were very fruitful for me early on, just to give myself confidence in that I've seen more than just like the general geographical area I've been in. I've talked to more people and get a sense of like, all right, where do I fit in this broader conversation among these professionals? But it was time consuming. Like you really get swept away in it because like you get passionate about some of these arguments, these discussions. But I found that that was really useful at first, but it wasn't like targeting the client directly. It was more getting in the conversation with professionals and continuing to put yourself in those conversations. Um, and I think the same thing is true. It's like getting into different continuing ed courses, not just for the sake of, like getting more knowledge, although that's obviously part of it, but also just every time you go to a continuing ed course, you find different professionals. You might start seeing the same people at the same courses. That builds the network, and then that gives you more confidence, but it also is sort of like you'll get referred out from across the country because somebody is looking for somebody in the Philadelphia area because your network, your net has just gotten bigger and bigger. I found that to be quite useful early on, and I still, like I don't do as much of that, but I find that like if I'm feeling a little stale, that's the first place I want to go is just talk to professionals that I trust, whether it's virtually or take a course and just get in that room.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said and something undervalued about the idea of joining a community. And the key here being like without expectation,
Hmm.
right? Like the big one that comes to mind would be, clinical athlete level up, Cal U,
Hmm.
but yeah, going out to, seminars. Now, in my case, right, let's talk about again, this is a very specific case.
Hmm.
But chiropractic in my state, I will just say that I'm stubborn, I'm very opinionated, and I don't feel like uh, I enjoyed some of the continuing ed courses that are approved in Pennsylvania, right?
Hmm.
And so a lot of those turned into checking boxes and then just going and doing usually physical therapy continuing ed. I didn't get credit for it.
Hmm.
But again, yeah, running in those circles is important.
Yeah.
Again, without the expectation that it is going to be a chamber of commerce meeting or anything,
Right.
just getting to know people.
That's the biggest thing that I've noticed a difference with like working on my own and working, for somebody else is the way that I view continuing education. Like when I was working for someone else, I never viewed it as marketing because who was I marketing for? Right? Like I just viewed it as, like it was a way like I liked learning, but I liked learning because I wanted to be more comfortable in the clinic, right? Like it sucks when you have to do evals and you don't feel like you're ready to handle someone's complaints and someone's issues. So the more I learned, the more comfortable I felt going in day after day on the job. And that's still part of the game is like when people come in to see you, you want to feel like you're loaded with information to help them. But now it's so much more like I'm doing that to add to my skills, add to my resume, because I'm directly trying to use that to, basically make a living. I didn't feel that same connection to how important like learning was to me making a living when I was working for someone else. So, because there was sort of like when you're working for someone else, there's a middleman there. When you're working for yourself, every time I take a continuing education course, I have to ask myself, like, is this going to kind of help my business? Most of the time it is. And it's like I feel like that's the number one thing I've done for marketing over the years, just make myself have more education, have more knowledge, but you also meet people that are trying to do the same thing. You meet people that are like-minded that way, and that starts to build your referral source from outside of the close area that you're in, but you also get to meet people in the close area that you're in too that are like doing it might feel like they're competition, but they quickly become your best referral sources because they trust you, you trust them, and you're, maybe 25 minutes away. The person that they're recommending to you, they're a little too far for, right? Like, and you realize like how important that is to have even like people that might be next door be your friends because you agree on the same thing. You start, sharing clients with each other.
Yeah, definitely. I've spent so long now. It was fun. I'm sort of in a mode where the thing I need to do to make sure my business survives is to learn how to be a business owner.
Hmm.
But, I've been open since September. So it's obviously been a ton of money going out into equipping and furnishing and all that stuff. But I look forward now that I'm kind of getting the hang of the, entrepreneur thing, right? The business owner thing, the
Hmm.
self-employed thing. Really looking forward to allotting some of the budget to going back and doing some of those continuing ed seminars. I
Hmm.
used to do so much more
Yeah.
than I do now. Um, And I want to get back into that mode again, and I'm
Yeah.
excited to get back into that mode again. I want to allot some. I want to assign right some of the
Hmm.
budget to an ongoing Cal U membership.
Hmm.
Things like that kind
Yeah.
of coming down the pike. I'm excited to
Yeah.
get back into that mode.
Yeah, and I think that you'll see how fruitful that is, like with the new perspective of like this is for my business. Like I just feel like you take more from it, you learn more from it. But then I don't know, like I went in there just the fact that I like owned a business even when I was very new to it, I felt more confident going into those rooms and networking because it was like I had something directly I was trying to network for where when I was working in a clinic, I was ironically like they were oftentimes paying for the continuing ed, but I didn't appreciate the continuing ed as much. It's like certain like when you pay for it, like okay, there's a reason I'm paying for this. And again, it's usually the stuff that's outside of what actually gives us more CEUs to actually like up our license because that stuff is so it's not useless, but it's just very base. And nowadays you can do most of that just like on the computer in the comfort of your own home. You can just do it online. It's the act of like getting out and traveling a little bit and seeing people like that are like-minded that it sort of it lights a fire under like okay this I'm not the only one trying to do this and we can all learn from each other and it sort of it creates this camaraderie that I love about the job. So but I didn't have that same feeling when I was working for somebody else.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely different when you pay for it for sure.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
sense of ownership.
and I would say like if I look at it like marketing budget, to me that's always the number one thing is like what am I doing from a continuing ed standpoint? And then more locally it could be like okay if I do I want to reach out to someone that has a little bit bigger space and offer some type of workshop or something along those lines. But I think that's also a really good way to get yourself in the community that's a little bit more local. But typically, like you're also meeting and getting to know the people that own that spot, run that spot, and like that becomes a nice relationship, a back and forth, especially if it's like a group fitness place. They're going to have people doing specific things and they may want to refer out to you because you have your chiropractic background and you're like you're not the type of chiropractor that I get this all the time is like you're not the type of physical therapist that will tell people not to do something. You're the type of medical professional that will show them how to do it better or whatever it is. But like that's something that I think is quite useful when you can wear both hats, is getting into a community or getting to know people that they have a bunch of people coming in, but they don't have the time or the maybe the background to be able to work on trying to make it easier for them or work on trying to, work around pain and things like that, right? So those communities become huge. Yeah, and I think it's often like approaching any relationship where, what can I learn from you? Not here's what you can learn from me, right? And making that become like if it is like a very direct like marketing relationship, then like I think a good starting point is I want to learn from you, right? Like so if you're going to a CrossFit, it's not like send me your patients or send me your clients because they're going to get hurt. I could teach them how to work out better, or I can make sure that they come back to you, safer. It'd be like I want to learn this CrossFit stuff. Like teach me like how I can, like do it. And then you can trust yourself that you'll be able to do it safer if you felt like uncomfortable with it at first, but let them teach you, right? And then a lot of times that turns into a nice relationship where it's like, oh yeah, I know where I can fit my skill set into this. And the conversation happens a little bit more organically that way. But like if you start with like I want to be the student, I think the relationship gets deeper quicker.